Welcome to another episode of the EMS Wizard podcast. You have the gentleman G. Mark Casey here with
That's a
John,
great big
Terry,
old
and
Santa
Walter.
Claus sitting behind Terry. That's like the abominable snowman sitting behind Terry.
He's
That could
he's
be
reading he's reading my favorite Christmas book. There's a whole bunch of bears you can't see in front of him, and it's a Nickelback Christmas.
and big bears in front of him.
And it starts out that Santa Claus had been far away for far too long.
It's triggering to me. Anyway,
Look at that photograph.
Yeah, do you see that photograph on the tree?
yeah. Anyway, Mark, you were saying something. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, before I was really interrupted again for the
Walter
23rd time.
Episode? Is Walter with us this episode?
24.
So with
Yeah, Walter's there.
I was here on the last episode as well. Remember that?
Nope.
Sure. Y'all forget so easily.
This is what
Wasn't
best
paying
friends
attention.
do. We forget one another here at the holidays.
Sad thing. Walter, we are forgotten about whenever we attend, or we attend as guests
Correct.
on the John and Terry
Correct.
show.
Well, we have a real guest tonight, so why don't somebody get to that point of view and start
Yeah.
introducing the real guest for tonight?
Yeah, we have a real guest. The real guest is Miss Angela Magill, the EMS department chair for Sampson Community College. Angela, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great to be here.
So, Angela, we usually start off with a little bit about the individual. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your journey and where you are now and everything you're involved with now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
a lot.
altogether about 30 years, 33 years, altogether in EMS, volunteer and paid. And I have served in many roles. I've served as an FTO, a street medic. I served as an educator, as an AEMT instructor, matter of fact, and training officer for 6 years with Sampson County EMS. And I am now the program director or the department chair at Sampson Community College. So my journey, I've worked, as you would say, from the boots up and still work a truck every now and then.
Sampson, is that in Eastern North Carolina?
It's central North Carolina.
We call it Central. See, to me, like you guys always say, I'm West or whatever. To
Western.
me, that is definitely Eastern North Carolina.
I think it's-
Sampson is.
So
think
look at
it's
the
west.
OEMS regions, like that
That's
line
what I
is
do.
that.
Yes, it's the central region according to OEMS.
There you go.
West to those of us east of I-95.
What major town is in Sampson? I don't know if I've ever been to Sampson before.
Clinton, North Carolina.
Clinton. Okay. I know where Clinton's at. Okay.
But now I live in Beulahville, North Carolina, so I live in Duplin County.
Wow. Have you tried the wine?
Absolutely.
I like the sweet Hatteras Red.
I am stocked to the rim.
Some of the best.
So it's synonymous. EMS wine. EMS wine. It
Especially
goes
around
together.
here.
Yes.
Especially around here.
Absolutely.
As
Yes.
it should be. I was just looking at our backgrounds. We have backgrounds. You have a real Christmas background.
Legit.
Yes, I refurbished this mantle a couple of years ago, and it was a work of love. And so now I decorate it the way I want to.
Nice.
That's John's nickname for me. Work of love.
Oh, wow. I don't think that's accurate. But anyway, so tell us a little bit about what you do, and everything you're involved with education in EMS.
Education has come a long way. So we have kept up with the needs of the agencies. We offer whatever is needed for whatever agency. I have put on classes for every agency in the state pretty much. If they'll call me and say, hey, my local community college won't do this or that, then absolutely, we'll put it on. You drive to us, we'll put it on for you. Education as a whole, though, as far as being on committees and so on and so forth, the biggest thing for me is helping the program directors within their community colleges get what they need. And I feel that is the most important thing right now. We need to help them get what they need, their faculty in place. Program directors should not carry caseloads or teaching loads like they are currently doing that we are aware of. So I work real close with Todd and San Juan at the state, and I also sit on the steering committee for this education committee to help get things pushed through for our program directors and the community colleges.
What did Sampson Community College look like before you got there? Was it set up the same way it is now, or when you got there? Tell me about what that looks like, just so folks that may be interested in, hey, I walk into a community college job. There's not really a class I take to tell me how to do all of these things. Talk about a little bit of what you experienced and where you went with it.
So I was very fortunate in the fact that I worked part-time at the college teaching various EMS classes while another program director was there. But unfortunately, he was tasked with multiple areas. So he was over all public safety. So I would not say that there was an actual EMS program. So I have built that program for the first couple of years by myself, both curriculum and Con Ed. There was actually no curriculum program prior to me stepping into place. So after that, there was a lot of learning curves for me. So there was no faculty but me. And about year 2, I was allowed to bring in a part-time faculty member who was teaching the EMS 110 or the EMT on the curriculum side. So, and in the beginning years, I was also trying to start the accreditation process, which, wow, you all have been through that. You all know what that looks like. So I was it. So I had to reach out to a lot of my program directors. Kent Spentler, of course, was a primary mentor from about 28 years ago. 28 years ago, me and Kent sat in Greensboro and had a very long conversation that lasted probably 6 hours, sitting on the sofa in the main hallway there in Greensboro. And that was my first real insight to education and what education needed to look like for the future. So Kent Spentler about 28 years ago started mentoring me, and I've leaned on him up until his passing for guidance, and I guess that was it. Just guidance in my program area. And he did come down to Sampson. He sat in on a few of my classes, and he looked over some of my paperwork. And this young man, he would not allow me to buy him lunch, because you know me, if I have a guest, I like to take you out to lunch and say thank you. And he would never let me pay. I don't know how he ever got around that. Even when I tried to plan it, he got away with it. So I feel like I have been led by some wonderful program directors, specifically Mr. Kent Spentler. So it was a terrible loss to all of us with his passing. So I'm just hoping that I can carry on in his mentorship and his leadership, and carry on the star that he started in Gaston. And that's the program, that's the leadership that I looked up to. And of course, I've got some others out there, but he was my main one. Like I said, I'll never forget our 6-hour conversation sitting on the sofa in Greensboro. So
he was definitely a visionary. I think of Ken. I think of, since you brought him up, I think of legacy. Folks that leave behind, and what do they carry on with them, passing of the torch or whatever. And the thing about Kent is he had many torches he was willing to pass along to folks and whatnot. And I thought he was a true visionary, looking well beyond his years of what he had experienced. And it's just to get us to where we are. I think he was almost like the tractor that pulled the cart, along. So it's about. I'm all in the feels about Kent Spitler and impact that he had on you. He had similar impacts with me as well. So,
He was definitely inspirational, and if I'm half the program director as he was, then I know that I have made him proud. And he told me so, that he was very proud of me and the progress we were making at Sampson. So yes, he will always have a place at Sampson and with my program.
So, Angela, I've got a follow up where you'd said a couple of different times about it Greensboro, sitting and having those conversations, those front couches, and the state office does a really great job with some high quality education, some of the pre-conference things that they have going on there, the banquet. But I think all of us can agree that a lot of the business also happens, like you just said, sitting on those couches and those kind of off the cuff conversations. Some people, maybe as those new supervisors, those new leaders, those new educators, might be hesitant. I don't know where I fit in all of this. What's some advice that you would give those new folks for, hey, why you should go to some of the conferences, and how do you maximize that FaceTime with other leaders across the state, or maybe somebody who is your inspiration or your role model? What would you say to those folks?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because we have already been speaking of a program director getaway type situation at Camp Caraway, and just to have a weekend where we can collaborate with new program directors or just collaborate in general. But yes, I feel like that if we could start something pre-conference for new directors, new instructors, actually new instructors. And this is not to put a damper on any of the instructor workshops, but I feel like these instructors who are just starting out, and program directors that are starting out, clinical coordinators that are starting out, they need a group that they can push ideas off on and talk to and gain some knowledge on what works and what doesn't. Just because it works at Sampson doesn't mean it's going to work at James Brunt. So we need to come together in those specialty areas to find out what does work. So yes, I really believe there needs to be a little more concentration on the education side in Greensboro, which I think they're doing better. They are. But give us that opportunity to sit together as a group, as a collaborative group, to have those conversations.
and I think the EMS Administrators Conference actually does that well too. That's another. You mentioned the couches in Greensboro. Well, you said the same thing about the patios in Wilmington and Nashville.
Exactly.
I love the patio in Asheville. We solve the world's problems there, do we not, Mr. Mark?
Absolutely, all of them in one week.
I love them. I mean, we do. We talk about a lot of good stuff and bring it back, and then we'll collaborate later and give each other a call. Hey, Mark, guess what? This has got pushed through. We can do this now. So yes, these things do happen, and we need to push the administration at the colleges and the agencies to start sending their instructors and sending their higher of leadership to these conferences to take back that information.
Well, and to your point of the different people that are in there, so there's a couple of things that I've kind of drew out of what you've talked about. I mean, it seems like our time together is always short when we're talking, because I've always got somewhere to be, or you've got somewhere you've got to be, or whatnot. And we just have like a real quick 30-minute word vomit session, and then we're off and running to something else. And Caraway was one of those places where we had one of those opportunities. So, but I think that may be the origination of maybe some of the community college silos. If I get dumped into a program and I'm in there, and you've experienced this, having to come in and I don't have a team to work with, and I'm the only person. If you don't have a Kent Spittler or somebody, then you're just going to build what you think is best. Maybe at best you're working with your agency, and you just build your own little silo. And that's where you'll stay if you don't reach out to these other places or people to sort of to build that off of. So there's real value in being able to get out there and collaborate like that. And And somewhere along the way, community colleges at some level, I guess, felt like they were in competition with each other, and they're not.
They're not. We're not.
So
Yeah, and that was, and I'm glad you bring that up because I was in Raleigh for one of the conferences for the North Carolina Community College System conference in
leadership.
Raleigh,
Yeah.
and that was probably the best conference I have been to in a long time. They were very heavy on public safety, and there was a lot of interest in how can we do things better, and so I'm glad they are finally looking at us as a whole, as public safety, allied health, the whole EMS, fire. They talked about EMS, fire, and law enforcement, but
Right.
there was a heavy concentration on EMS, and I was very pleased to be a part of that conversation. And even I learned a few new things to take back to the college. And we've implemented a couple of those things. So, and this is where you do learn, and this is where you do collaborate and you take it back. So we have made some strides at the college within my program area because of that conference in Raleigh.
And you started getting into it a little bit, but I think we kind of segued off a little bit from
Mhm.
that. That is, you talked about your past getting up to where you were going to be at Sampson. What were you able to establish? You said you jumped in having to take, EMS 110, having to start the accreditation, but you're not a program of one anymore. So you were able to do something, and that's a tough sell to some of these places to dump money into a program with promise. And you have to wait for the return. So tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Well, so I'm very unique. I don't know how many other program directors are over both program areas. So I started out with 2 students in curriculum, and I really had no cohorts for Con Ed. So you have to build the program. And I told them in the very beginning, you need to give me 5 years. You can't build a program in a year. It's not possible. In this area, it's just not possible. Give me 5 years and let me show you what I can do. So my administration stepped in, and they understood that this was going to be a challenge. They worked with me. I have a great administration. I know that a lot of community colleges cannot say that, but I did, and I had the support, and I was drowning. And I went to my administration and I said, I cannot do this anymore by myself. You've got to get me some help. They asked me what I needed, and I told them, I said, I need a full-time clinical coordinator and I need a full-time lead instructor so I can do my job. If you want this program built, I have to have the support. And then about a year, 6 months to a year later, I was able to get the support I needed because I had someone at the college fighting for the program. And money was put into it, and the people came. It was like the field of dreams. The students started coming, and we built the program, and we built it together. So me, John, and William built the program together, and I can't leave Jim DeMay out. I'm going to plug him in a little bit. He was my confidant in the very, very beginning. He was my part-time 110 instructor. So he saw the struggles, and he was able to help as well voice what we needed and why we needed it. So then, the more and more you get collaborating and saying, we need this, they start to listen. And here we sit running successful programs. My numbers are not going to be like WakeMed's or Gaston Community College. I'm not going to have 40 to 60 students sitting in a classroom, but that's okay. It's okay. We are successful. The journey was not easy. There were a lot of tears shed. But we did it, and we're still moving. We're still learning. We're still trying to be creative in how we offer courses and classes. And just recently, again, like I said, we were in Raleigh, and I learned that Forsyth Tech was doing an alternating flip-flop on curriculum. We need to get out of the traditional sense. Our students are not traditional anymore in EMS. We cannot expect a working student to sit 4 to 5 days in a classroom. It's not feasible. They have to work. So we are now able to offer the curriculum program on an alternating flip-flop, which means the students will come in 1 day for lecture and 1 day for lab. And they get all of the classes within that section within the semester. So we built it. Now the students will have to come in spring semester until 18:05 p.m. And but all of their Englishes, their anatomies, everything is online. So their core classes are seated. So we're happy that we can do that. So now what we've done is we have stacked our curriculum and our Con Ed together. So I have, I believe it was 2 nights ago, I was notified because I keep up with my email. We now have 20 butts in the seat for January for paramedic.
That'll make a college administration very happy.
Because we were told originally that curriculum could not be built on an alternating flip-flop because there was no way to build it in colleague. And then when we heard it, Forsyth Tech was doing it, we buzzed them, got them on the line. Our registrars were talking, and our registrar even did it better than Forsyth Tech did. So we made it happen, and kudos to our registrar for being there and helping us make that happen.
Yeah, and I think those community colleges probably build their processes internally sometimes when they outside of what we can do, because I think EMS people in general are just very flexible, and program directors, they understand how to operate and navigate black, white, and gray. And maybe these other departments aren't used to it. They got their one way of doing it. It works this way. This is my way. And it's really a struggle. And I've seen that throughout my career, getting other departments to understand that this isn't the only way. There's other things that can be done. And and I was going to say that I've been out to your facility, and I don't know that you give yourself enough credit. You got a fabulous facility out at Sampson Community College. Your simulation room, multiple rooms. Listen, we've talked on here before about there's programs out there, man, to where you had to you brought your equipment to class. And when class was over for that day or night, you took your equipment back with you. It stayed in a closet somewhere. You did not have a space. And now you're seeing not just your own space. They're starting to erect buildings that are primarily for EMS or public safety or healthcare or whatnot. So, and Walter, y'all are on the front end of actually building a new space too, right?
Yeah, they're getting ready to build a new simulation building, campus, nursing. So all allied health and nursing will be in the same space, which will give us some opportunity to be able to share some stuff like we haven't been able to do before, as we're all spread out over the campus now. So that'll help out.
We have to take the advantage right now of all those things too, because EMS has been in the spotlight. If we're talking about post-COVID, that to me, that means there's a little bit of that window of opportunity that might be closing, that we're not going to be in the spotlight. And so it's good to see stations being built, new facilities being built, programs growing, having money tossed at them. And if we don't get folks involved, like you're doing down there, Angela, about, bringing folks in and raising them up. We've talked about using our own folks, our own graduates in our programs to continue it forward. We're going to lose an opportunity as that window begins to close. And I'm telling you, you mentioned that you've been in it 30 years. There's a lot of change you've had a front row seat in that you've got to. What do you see as the most prominent changes that have happened over the 30 years? What would you say the things that stick out to you the most, that are the bookmarks that you say that's a mark, that's a mark, that's a mark? I have mine. Walter has his. We all have our things where we say that. What are yours?
So a couple is the paramedicine. Paramedicine is being recognized as what it should be. Yes, we're 911, but paramedic is Latin for beside doctor. So we need to be beside the doctor. We need to be in that emergency room. We need to be assisting and filling those voids. The respect for the education, the respect for the profession itself. It's coming. I think we stepped up to the plate during COVID, and we proved ourselves at that point. And I think we got a lot of looks. So the profession is growing in that direction. So that was a mark. The degrees, I know there is some controversy over that, but if you look at the other countries, whenever you go to different conferences, you need to look at the research that's being done. We are the only country right now that does not require the degree option for paramedicine, and so we need to go ahead and push forward on that. We are taking care of lives. We're pushing serious medications now. I remember as an EMT first starting out, all you could do was put a person on a backboard, strap them down, and give them oxygen, transport them to a hospital. And look at our scope of practice for just basics, and now the expanded scope for our basics. We've come a long way, and we need to start taking that more seriously. There needs to be more time educating these students. They're taking care of you. They're taking care of your family. So if they're not prepared, it's on you.
So, Angela, where are you all drawing your students from? Because I know as an agency person, sometimes that's part of the difficulty when we talk about throughput. When we talk about how many students are graduating, and that's been some colleges that's a bit difficult. So what's your draw? Where are y'all getting your people from?
A lot of my students are coming out of Cumberland County.
Wow.
I'm for the majority of mine are coming from Cumberland. Now, I do have a few, the sporadic, if you want to scatter plot it, if you will. Some are coming Harnett. I'm getting some out of Duplin, maybe have one or two out of Duplin County somewhere. And I've got one now that is actually coming from Hampstead. He's on the fire department in Hampstead, which is in Onslow County. So he will drive to campus twice a week for paramedic.
So it's about 90 minutes one way for him, or?
Yep.
I was going to say, do you see your stuff coming out of like fire background, high school, or when you say they're coming from it? Obviously, this looks like it's regionalized for you, but is there a set of folks that you see coming, like they're coming from straight out of high school, they're in high school?
Oh no, these students are coming to us changing careers or wanting to start a new career. Very few are coming out of high school. They're wanting to go to the nursing department, or they want to go to university. They want the higher paying jobs. So money is what is attracting our students. So we've got to get better there. That's the next push. And I can speak very intelligently at sometimes on the agency side of the house, because agencies are commission driven, if you will, and there's budgetary constraints, and we are not looked upon as a profession. And some people may or may not know, and I think most of the ones that are sitting in here, they understand. If you've never looked at a line item budget from an agency perspective, we are listed as a commodity. We are not listed as a healthcare professional like the hospital. So if you've ever gotten a hospital bill, you will see professional services listed on the hospital bill, and it's got an itemized list of what you're billed for. EMS does not do that. We do not bill for itemized listing because we are not in that realm of professional services. We are billed as a commodity, the same line item as toilet paper, pretty much. So we need to really take a closer look at how we're paying within the agencies. And I think that they got a hit for that during COVID, and some of the agencies have stepped up, and I applaud them for that. I really do. But there's still some agencies that are lagging.
And I would say that's probably, the whole system in terms of that is broken. When you look at Medicaid, Medicare for what their reimbursement is, we are transportation, we aren't care providers. We're wrapping up year 2 of the cost study. I think it's 4 or 5 years that Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, knowing the federal government, they will get their 4 or 5 years worth of information, and then they'll sit on it for another 5 to 10 years before they take action. But I would say when we look at this, the whole last system is broken and jacked up.
Well, and that's where we come back to the degree as well, because we are not licensed. We are not licensed healthcare professionals. We are certificates. We have a certificate. And until we can become licensed, which means everybody has to have a degree, we have to have a medical board put in place to oversee those licensing practices. And until that happens, we are not considered healthcare professionals or professional
And
services.
you know, you can get right argumentative in the folks that want to talk about the difference or the need for a degree.
Oh,
And you know, us
Can you?
traveling us
Huh?
traveling the state, we get a front row seat hearing these discussions about it. And I'm gonna tell you, I would have to say it's still split 50-50
It
on
is.
where that is. And so I don't know that there's a couple of questions I think that have went unanswered when it comes about that. And I'll use two examples. The first one I'll say is, show me where it works, and you can't use nursing. So show me
Right.
somewhere that went licensed, somewhere with paramedic, and it all went out that way. That's what I would say first. And if that exists, I'm not saying it don't. I don't chase those rabbits. That's what the highlight should be. And then the second thing I would say is, to be an instructor in this state, you now have to have an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. And how well are community colleges doing at finding instructors? Because I can tell you it's a challenge. I don't know that people do that. I mean, I have folks that I know that are like, I'd love to be an instructor. I want to do these things. And I'm like, cool, come get your hours, get a level 1. And they're like, I don't have a degree. And I ain't got time to go get a degree to make your XYZ per hour on this. So that may actually be an example of how a degree can hurt the industry. And even though I understand the importance of those things, I just don't know the timing is there. These are the challenges that I hear or whatnot. And if I was to turn Terry loose, he could give an agency perspective on that, because we've talked about it. And I'm sure there's opinions that Mark and Walter both have as well on those things. But we could make a whole episode on just the thought process of, going degree. And
be like a whole story arc, multiple episodes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're gonna have many opinions. You're gonna have many opinions, and a lot of the times, just like in the last 2 instructor methodology classes that I've taught, the students were unaware of multiple facets of why the degree needs to be in place for paramedicine. And when I break it down for them and explain to them, okay, this is why, and this is why, and how you get paid, and the difference between a licensure and a certification, and whether you have a medical board or whether you don't have a medical board, then the light bulb comes on. They start to see the difference at that point. So it's our responsibility as educators to start educating the whys. We need to explain it to them, break it down Barney style, if you will. You have to, because the only thing that these people, you know how EMS is, you get a group of 13, 14 people on 8 different trucks in a day, and they start talking, and the gossip mill goes about, well, they're forcing us to get degrees or we're going to lose our jobs. You know how it works. That's not what was said. And so we really need to start bringing smaller groups in and start explaining to them, Barney style, why this is a good idea. I certainly come up in the EMS system without initial instructors with no degrees. My first EMT instructor was not a degree person. He actually worked for the Department of Corrections full time and worked on the volunteer squad at night. So, you know what I'm saying? We've come a long way, but we're not there yet. We've got some work to do. We're going in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think there's some edge, and I think you're on the right track when it comes to these things. There's and I'll quote Antoine Brown one more time out of Edgecombe, who says, you got to educate before you can advocate.
Yes.
And you have to know the education part includes all sides of this thing, and it's not an overnight success. This is where those couches and those patios come into play for everyone when it comes to those things, so that they can do that. But I think all in all, the passion people have either side of that aisle is just as important as the other side is.
Absolutely.
So, And that's, to me, that's where that comes from. We all have these different roads that we travel and see it through these different lenses, if you would, and how we see those things. But I think it's going to take people like, yourself to be passionate about it and get out there and do it. And certainly, there's enough of these type people that are out there, myself, you, Terry, Mark, Walter, to get out there and have these conversations and make the education piece, strong. Not only on that, that's just a small little piece of the growth that EMS is going through over the last, each year. Each year it's a different challenge, new growth or whatnot, and stuff. But just last week they were talking about drones, first aid drones. And that still blows my mind. I mean, I don't know what kind of world am I going to walk into 10 years from now when I walk outside and a drone is delivering my prescription. I actually think I can see that now. And
delivering your Geritol.
This is why you're 18th on the best friend list.
Wait, but I was 14th earlier. What? Four slots for that?
He doesn't remember. Yeah.
Hey, he doesn't remember. It's fine.
As I said offline, Walter and me are really best friends, and we just don't like telling y'all about it because we don't like to gloat.
Oh, wow.
I don't think Walter agrees.
That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie.
That's probably a perfect segue to what I think is going to be our final question, because it looks like we're out of
Angela,
time. So,
don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Do not fall for it. Don't
Angela,
fall for it.
Walter normally asks this question.
No, Walter does not.
Angela, who is your best friend? Who's your best friend? Why are they your best friends? 1, 2, 3, go.
My best friend is my husband.
Good answer.
Oh, look at y'all.
Good answer.
Y'all can't say nothing. Only Mark and I can say something.
Because it wasn't John or Terry. They're not the best
y'all
friend.
got these mouths like, that's right. See?
Yeah. Now I will say that as far as my brother who passed away a few years ago, he was my best friend prior to that. But my husband's always been my best friend. But my brother was always my confidant. I guess you could say that. So it was a horrible loss when he passed. But my husband stepped right up. So we've been together quite some time, and we've been through a lot. So he's been thick and thin with me through this whole journey of EMS. And I must say, he is retired and I'm next. I have a new grandbaby, and I'm, whew, it's hard, but I can't leave the helm yet. I'm waiting on those degrees to be gotten so that they can fulfill my role. So when you pass the torch, you need to have a succession plan. And that's been my number one rule. Matter of fact, 28 years ago, when Kent and I sat in that hallway in Greensboro, we talked about succession plans, because even back then we were talking about my envisionment. I knew where I wanted to go as far as my journey in EMS, and I'm where I want to be, and I'm very happy where I want to be. I'm not finished yet. I just don't feel like I'm through yet. And my succession plan is not complete. I have the right people in place. They're just not quite ready. They can handle day to day. I can walk away and go to a conference, go to a meeting for 3 or 4 days, take a vacation. I don't worry. And I think, John, you can attest. Mark, you've been with me on several of those meetings, away meetings, and I don't worry about my team. I don't worry about what's going on. They can handle minor issues. If there's something major, they'll give me a call. Otherwise, I feel very confident leaving them two in place.
You have a solid team there.
I do. But it's been built. It did not happen overnight. You have to build your team. And there has to be a lot of trust. And sometimes, and I'm set in my ways, and they're younger, and sometimes they'll come to me and persuade me. And I'm very hard to persuade sometimes, and I have to go home and think about it.
I will just have to say, on top of that if I'm the 18th best friend, that there's 17 other best friends that John has. 17? That's a stretch.
Wow.
This is what I say. Angela said it all, is it takes a lot of work and succession planning. And like she said, it takes a lot of work, and friendship ain't no different. And y'all got a lot of work to do to work up to the top to be able to hold it up. I trust, and I let y'all friends operate, and letting y'all friends operate. Just the other day, I had a friend in New York City, I had a friend in Texas, and I had a friend in Duplin County, and I was in South Carolina. So, I mean, just the other day, and so I had friends all over the country, and it's a lot of hard work to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have friends in different area codes?
I did.